Ukraine releases video of its military firing at Russian positions in Bakhmut, where it's still fighting after Russia captured the city in May. The EU agrees new sanctions against Russia, this time punishing third countries that help Moscow evade them.
Time is quickly running out in the search for a missing submarine visiting the wreck of the Titanic. Its oxygen supply is expected to run out by Thursday morning. Hundreds of Israeli settlers stormed a Palestinian town in the occupied West Bank on Wednesday, setting fire to dozens of buildings.
Ukraine has released video of its soldiers firing Grad rockets at Russian positions near Bakhmut in the eastern Donbass region. The town was where the most intense battle of the war was waged before Russian troops captured it in May. At its worst, hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers were dying there each day. Some of the surviving soldiers told the Kiev Independent newspaper. It's not known how many Russian soldiers died there. Now Ukraine's resumed fighting on the Bakhmut front as part of its counter-offensive. Meanwhile, inside Russia on Wednesday, 2 drones were brought down near Lukino on the outskirts of Moscow, where military warehouses are located. No damage or casualties were reported. Ukraine's denied firing them, but previously it said it has the right to strike any target in response to Russia's invasion. Moscow has raised the death toll from the flooding after the Kakhovka Dam burst to 41, but Kiev estimated it's more likely around 500 people. Both sides accuse each other of having blown up the dam, a strike that was clearly in Russia's favour as it slows down Ukraine's counter-offensive. And as a rebuilding conference got underway in London on Wednesday, there were signs that reconstruction has already begun, including here in the city of Irpin. At the conference, Ukraine's allies pledged several billion euros in non-military aid to rebuild the country's infrastructure. The EU has agreed to hit Russia with a new package of sanctions, the 11th time it's done so since Ukraine was invaded in February last year. The aim is to make it possible to punish third countries that have been helping Moscow evade them. The aim of many existing sanctions is to close loopholes so that goods vital to President Putin's war effort don't get through. The EU's top official, Ursula von der Leyen, tweeted that they deal a further blow to Putin's war machine. Previous sanctions have targeted banks, companies and financial markets, even parts of the sensitive energy sector. And more than 1,000 officials have had their assets frozen and been banned from entering the EU. But this is the first time that plans have been announced to target trade to Russia via other countries. Previous sanctions have been agreed on in just months, extremely quickly for the EU. But new measures are becoming increasingly hard to endorse as they inflict damage on the economic and political interests of some member states, as well as the Kremlin.
€12.8 billion in immediate aid and over €366 billion in the long term has been pledged for the reconstruction of Ukraine at a conference in London. Dozens of countries have come together in the UK to discuss the rebuilding of Ukraine, but the bill for the Russian invasion is growing steadily.
As we've seen in Bakhmut and Mariupol, what Russia cannot take, it will seek to destroy. They want to do the same to Ukraine's economy. And the scale of the challenge is real. The war brought a 29% fall in Ukraine's GDP last year.
The event was attended by leaders and representatives from more than 60 countries who were addressed by the Ukrainian president via video link.
Ukraine has activated all the power of solidarity for which the EU was conceived. And Ukraine is also activating the moral force of NATO. This is important for all of us.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has praised the resilience of the Ukrainian people and their desire to make a fresh start.
In just over a year, Ukrainians have cleared rubble from 2,000 kilometers of roads, rebuilt over 40 bridges, renewed 900 train stations and depots. And all of this while fighting a war for their own survival. Slava Ukraine.
And many leaders have stressed the importance of business involvement in the future of Ukraine.
Time is quickly running out in the search for a missing submarine that lost contact with its mothership on Sunday as it descended to the wreck of the Titanic with 5 people on board. Each passing second makes it less likely that the passengers will be found alive. Philip Crowther has the latest.
The US Coast Guard has acknowledged that a sound was heard. That is a glimmer of hope. It was a Canadian military surveillance aircraft that detected underwater noises. This as part of this massive operation in a remote part of the North Atlantic. Searchers moved an underwater robot to that area. However, those searches have yielded negative results, but continue. These are the words of the Coast Guard based here in Boston that's leading this complex rescue mission. The magazine Rolling Stone had earlier cited what it described as internal US government emails saying that teams heard banging sounds in the area every 30 minutes. Estimates suggest as little as a day's worth of oxygen could be left if the vessel is still functioning. And questions remain about how teams could even reach the lost submersible. It could be as deep as about 3,800 meters below the surface near the wreckage of the Titanic. Meanwhile, more and more international ships and planes are heading to the area, and there's also a push to get salvage equipment to the scene in case the vessel is found. Philip Crowther, Euronews, Boston.
A Palestinian has been killed in the occupied West Bank after hundreds of Israeli settlers stormed a town on Wednesday, setting fire to dozens of cars and homes. The attack comes amid escalating violence in the region, as Israel is set to build 1,000 new settler homes in the occupied territory. A day earlier, 4 Israelis were killed in a shooting. That after 7 Palestinians were killed on Monday in a day-long Israeli military raid.
فلما فشل المستوطنين من دخول اللبان رجعوا على الشارع الرئيسي على الجهة الثانية مقابل للشارع يكسروا محلات تجارية وحرقوا بيتين واجوا على سياراتنا طبعا بوجود الشرطة الإسرائيلية والجيش الإسرائيلي معهم. احنا ما قدرنا طبعا نحمي سياراتنا لأنه كان مع زوجاتنا معنا فاضطرينا ان طلعنا على وراء الجبل. شباب اللبنان اجوا ساعدونا واجوا المستوطنين بكل همجية يعني حرقوا سياراتنا ولو مكثنا فيها لا سمح الله كان يعني في أعداد وفيات أو
Israel has deployed more of its forces to the occupied West Bank. Young people were among the dead this week. Mourners gathered for the funerals of the 4 dead settlers from the settlement Eli, including a 17-year-old. Meanwhile, these young students are preparing to bury their 15-year-old classmate, killed during the Israeli raid on Monday. Some 136 Palestinians have been killed this year, including 23 minors, while 25 people have died on the Israeli side. A child has died in Slovenia as the country deals with its first heat wave of the summer. Police say the child was locked inside a car in a parking lot as temperatures topped 32 degrees Celsius. That number could rise to 34 degrees later this week. But some people are more in danger of soaring temperatures than others.
Ja, na urgenci najpogosteje zaradi vročine iščejo pomoč starejši ljudje, ljudje s kroničnimi boleznimi, ki jemljejo številna zdravila, ki lahko zmanjšajo občutek iz toplote, pa seveda delavci, ki delajo na vročini, nekateri športniki, ki tudi v ekstremni vročini potem izvajajo športne aktivnosti.
Hungary has issued a second-degree heat alert until midnight on Friday. In some places, temperatures could pass 37 degrees Celsius. But young children, the elderly, and people with cardiovascular diseases are particularly at risk. Experts are telling people to stay in cool places and drink plenty of water, especially between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. In central France, World Refugee Day was marked with an umbrella march in Lyon. The goal, to show solidarity and protection to asylum seekers, who often arrive in Europe alone.
Sans les associations, j'aurais eu beaucoup de mal, peut-être me refermer, pourquoi pas me suicider avec tout ce qu'il y a.
In Europe, the number of people in desperate situations seeking asylum has jumped to its highest rate since 2016.
On utilise le symbole du parapluie, qui est un symbole de protection très simple, un parapluie blanc, et pour passer le message qu'il faut continuer à accueillir les réfugiés. La France a accueilli à peu près autant de réfugiés en un an que la France accueille de demandeurs d'asile chaque année, à peu près 100 000. Donc il a fallu accueillir x2, j'allais dire.
Many who reach France are faced with daunting challenges, such as finding accommodation, and some are forced to turn to local volunteers for housing.
Ça fait 10 ans qu'on accueille des demandeurs d'asile parce qu'on était scandalisés par le fait que, bien qu'ayant une autorisation de séjour et tout, ils n'étaient pas logés, ils étaient à la rue.
Yakuba, who just obtained refugee status a few days ago, previously slept on the streets.
Quand je suis arrivé, c'était vraiment difficile. Je dormais à la Padieu. Je n'ai aucune personne, donc je suis accueilli par les familles.
Last year, France saw a 31% jump in the number of people applying for asylum for the first time. Pharrell Williams has bridged the gap between music and fashion in Paris. The famous singer, songwriter and producer made his debut on Tuesday night as creative director of Louis Vuitton's men's line. The fashion show took place at the iconic Pont Neuf, which was closed to the public and wrapped in a matte gold plaid canvas. Williams presented 50 outfits in which two types of prints, plaid and urban camouflage, predominated. More than 2,000 guests enjoyed the collection, which also included nods to hip-hop style. The 50-year-old writer of the worldwide hit Happy wants to show that he takes his new fashion job very seriously and has moved with his family to Paris to take on the role.